One of the more popular types of articles that you see across all fantasy football websites are called the start-sit articles, and I know you love them. I like reading them. I find them really interesting. But even in the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin, we can have our own start-sit articles. So for example, I'm in the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin. I'm actually in ChatGPT Plus with the plugin enabled, and I'm simply going to say, hey, FantasyoMatic, this tells the language model to bring the FantasyoMatic plugin forward. I'm going to say, can you write me a start-sit for week 5? And let's see what it does. And of course, all the information is going to come right from the FantasyoMatic machine learning algorithm. That means that everything from the matchup ratings, like you see here, so this is Josh Allen, matchup 94. That means that even though he has a player rating of some other value, this week he's expected to have a matchup rating of 94, which is like a Madden rating. And it has to do with the fact that he's going up against Jacksonville and a bunch of other factors that will adjust his normal player rating. So for example, home, away, the surface that he's playing on, all sorts of other factors, weather, tons of other really interesting stuff that goes into it. So you're seeing the matchup adjustment here, and starts are going to be those players that have a very positive matchup adjustment for the week, and sits, of course, will be the opposite. The other thing you should know when you're looking at this is model confidence. These are just a little 5-star approach that we do. For those of you that know machine learning, you know what confidence means. But for those of you that just like football and fantasy sports, well, what that means is in some of the player predictions, like a weekly rating, for example, the model is more confident than in others. And if it gives you 5 stars, then you're fine. But if it gives you 1 star, it likely means that that's because it's making a prediction for a rookie that it doesn't have a lot of training data on. So it's not as confident. So don't worry about the predictions on 1 stars. But if you have to kind of decide between 2 different predictions, maybe go with the one with the higher model confidence. You'll notice that it not only creates the starts and gives you the little table with all the weekly relevant information, it gives you a nice narrative here. And this is really important. This is not fantasy points against. That is foolish. That is completely irrelevant. Don't use that information. It's really how FantasyoMatic got its start, was coming up with an alternative approach, an intelligent approach to matchups. So this is what some prognosticators call schedule adjusted or opponent adjustment, but we've got so many more factors in here to really tell you what the strength of a matchup is. So forget all those other websites and just come to FantasyoMatic. As a matter of fact, if you click on any of these players, it'll take you to the profile. If you want to look at some of the defensive ratings to really see what the rankings are, you can always go to these rankings lists. This is the best resource in the industry for what a true value of a matchup is. So we take all sorts of different things into account, and it gives you this narrative. It goes down to the running backs, it goes down to the wide receivers, and down to tight ends. And then of course, when it's done with the starts, it'll give you the sits. So here we got a bunch of players that are normally good, but they have a really tough matchup. So you should really just kind of have faith in the FantasyoMatic matchup assessments and forget all that fantasy points against silliness. And so then when you're done, you might think, well, hey, Chris, this is just like another website. Well, how about if I say here, so write me a personalized start sit with my rosters in there. So I'm going to paste both of my rosters in. You can bring that information in any way you want. And I'm going to now say generate. So there's the rosters for both my leagues. I'd like a personalized start sit just for me, because it's all about personalization with the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin. So why not have it write personalized articles for you? So here we go. Here's a breakdown of all my different leagues. And these are the players I should start on each of my leagues. Oh, cool. This is good information. I can look at each one of these and it can tell me what the matchup adjustments are and recommend starts and sits. So this might be the way to help you figure out your important roster decisions, or maybe even you're just trying to figure out just between 2 players whether to start or sit. So here I'll just put both of those players' names in, and then I will ask the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin which of these should be a start and which should be a sit, and we'll see what kind of information we get back here. So in this case, we get our answer for start sit. So another really interesting way that you can use the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin to have your own personalized fantasy football experience week after week, 24/7.